Good evening, Your Honor. We are here today to discuss the constitutionality of the statement acquired from Jamie Hayes by Detective Thomas on the evening of May 16, 2014. Defense moves to exclude the statement on the grounds that it was acquired through unconstitutional circumstances due to considerable coercion on behalf of Detective Thomas. The true test of admissibility of evidence into a court case is that the confession is made freely, voluntarily, and without compulsion or inducement of any sort, as established by Haynes v. State of Washington. In the case of Jamie Hayes, this protection was violated by Officer Thomas. On the evening of May 16th, Jamie Hayes was coerced into making the statement in question. This statement cannot be deemed admissible due to the totality of the circumstances in that it rejects Jamie Hayes' Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. The statement was made following 16 hours of grueling interrogation and directly followed direct coercion from Officer Thomas. Near the end of this interrogation, and soon before the controversial statement, Officer Thomas told Jamie that her mother's boss had been informed of her arrest, and he hoped it would not cause her any trouble at work. This was a direct attack on Jamie's sympathies. Jamie, a girl of only 18 years of age at the time, had just moved out. Coming from a home with only one parent, her mother, and who she calls 3 to 4 times a week, Jamie has only one mentor to look up to and protect. In addition, her single mother cannot afford to pay the tuition rates of Central Coast University, as Jamie is only there on a track scholarship. Jamie's mother works a clerical job in the Madison Police Department, and Officer Thomas thought it best to alert Mrs. Hayes' employer of her daughter's arrest. Though he claims that he hoped it would not cause any problems, this is a simple act of Officer Thomas gaining leverage on Jamie by essentially threatening her mother's welfare. Officer Thomas will testify that after this, Haynes began to show signs of frustration and soon made the controversial statement. Proposing a threat to one of Jamie's closest loved ones, whether Officer Thomas intended to actually cause problems or not, produced the statement in question and therefore must be considered the proximate cause of the statement. In addition to the coercion of this statement, the will of Jamie had been thoroughly worn down by fatigue and official pressure throughout the entirety of May 16th. To start, the interrogation itself lasted for 16 hours with only a few bathroom breaks. Ashcraft v. Tennessee ruled that a 36-hour interrogation is inherently unconstitutional, and this connects to Jamie Hayes' 16 hours more when it is considered that she had no sleep throughout the night of May 15th. While the 16 hours of interrogation are, granted, far from the unconstitutional 36, Jamie went 2 days without rest before the threat to her mother was made, resulting in the statement. State v. Brown made the distinction between number of hours of interrogation and number of hours of confinement, and ruled that 5 hours of interrogation was not constitutional. Thus, the case of Jamie Hayes falls in the middle ground. Defense does not argue that the length of the interrogation makes this statement unconstitutional. Defense argues that Jamie Hayes went through 2 full days of no rest, no sleep, and after all this time had passed ultimately had a heartstring played by Officer Thomas and made the statement in question. Other conditions plagued Jamie throughout the day as well. Jamie will testify that Officer Thomas was inches from her face, and through the course of the 16 hours of interrogation, only received water and stale crackers, prison rations for an 18-year-old suspect in an ongoing investigation, which leads to the final contributing factor to the totality of the circumstances, the age of the defendant. Jamie Hayes was a girl of only 18 years of age. Gallegos v. Colorado ruled that the age of the defendant is a crucial factor in examining if the statement is voluntary, and this must be considered in the case of Jamie Hayes. Jamie was still in her freshman year of college and was struggling to adapt. Wishing she could return home but wanting to stick it out for her beloved mother, Jamie was not used to being on her own in a foreign area, much less an interrogation room with an experienced police officer. Just beginning to branch out into the world, Hayes cannot be considered under the same standards as one fully acclimated to society. In the end, this statement must be excluded from trial so as not to set a poor precedent. While many of these factors, such as age and time of interrogation, are debatable as to constitutionality, the totality of the circumstances, culminating in a thinly veiled threat by Officer Thomas, brings us to a statement made by a worn-down 18-year-old college freshman indignantly trying to bring a grueling interrogation to an end, after the welfare of the woman who raised her is threatened. Based on all this, defense requests the confession made by Jamie Hayes be excluded from trial. Thank you, Your Honor.